conducting a lot of the time is about empathy. It's about empathizing with a composer who wrote the music. It's about empathizing with an audience, about empathizing with the musicians who are playing and understanding. So what I love about my job is that you get to learn. Like right now I'm studying some music, and that's an inspiration for me because it's like, oh wow, I'm figuring out why this person wrote this and what they care about in that way.
Hello, my name is Eline Perez and you're listening to Are You an Artist? Today's episode is with Otis Enokido Lineham, and it's about conducting, empathy, but also sending emails. Yes, we don't often talk about how difficult it can be to approach people we want to work with, and Otis is very good at it. I was also curious to discover what a life of a conductor is like, and I'm sure you are too, so enjoy this episode with wonderful, bright, funny Otis. Dear Otis, I am so excited to welcome for the very first time a conductor in the podcast. In my old-fashioned French way of thinking, a conductor has to be 70 years old. But look at you. You are a very young, handsome British-Japanese conductor, and you have worked internationally across the fields of symphonic, contemporary, opera, and youth community music. I would love to see you conduct one day because you are a very fun person to be around, very clever, and always full of energy. When we are together, we tend to mostly talk about relationships. But today, for professional reasons, we will try to keep it around this subject.
Mm-hmm.
Otis, are you an artist?
Yeah, I suppose so. I've always thought of myself more as like a crafts person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's like, I can't remember when, but I remember hearing a while ago about this division between people who do like the arts and people who do things which are more like a craft.
Yeah.
And I've always enjoyed thinking of my job a bit more like a craft.
Yeah.
So even though I enjoy all of the, big theoretical stuff and the philosophical stuff, day to day, it feels very much like a kind of grounded craft that you wake up and do,
Mm-hmm. Do you have a routine that you do every day?
I wish that I was disciplined enough to have a routine. I think an ideal day, I'd wake up and I like to start score learning before I've fully woken up. Because sometimes, when you're sat at a desk and you open up your piece of music, you look at it and you could do anything. You could look at anything. It's kind of endless possibilities. And sometimes I think it's better for me to start learning when I'm slightly sleepy, because it means I can't overthink.
Uh-huh.
If I, go through the day, do my admin, do my emails, do all the boring stuff, and then I come to score learning later, my brain is already moving too quickly.
Okay.
So it's nice to start, in the way that dancers, they stretch in the morning and stuff.
Yeah.
If it's a day where I don't have rehearsals, if I had the discipline, I would love to start that way every day. But the reality is, I probably just go on my phone or drink a cup of tea and stare off into the distance, trying to make my brain work or something like that.
And how did he start? Because you studied cello first.
So classical musicians usually start learning instruments pretty early.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, when did you start dancing?
5, I think.
Yeah. So lots of classical musicians, if you speak to them, say that they started their instruments around 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And then they kind of learn all the way through. I actually started, first of all, on the trumpet. I did a year of trumpet. Yeah, I know.
I didn't know that.
No. Me and Lucas were talking about it. It's really funny. Yeah, I did a year of trumpet, but I didn't like it so much because it was very loud. And when you play a brass instrument, the sound is like in your head.
Yeah.
And I did a year of that when I was about 9. And then I started the cello after that, about 10, because I went round to a family friend's house and they just started, learning the cello at some local music service. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what's that? And they were like, oh, it's a cello. And I was like, oh, looks fun. Can I have a go? And so I started learning then. And all conductors start off by playing instruments or being singers or by being a composer or pianist or something. And then you go into conducting. No one starts off in conducting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I kind of came to it when I was around 16. I was lucky to be in a youth orchestra where the conductor let us have a go at conducting. And from there, I kind of started, and I was terrified my first time, but it was really fun. And then I did it a bit more. Then I did some stuff with friends, and bit by bit, I kind of worked my way towards it.
And do you still play the cello now, or?
Yeah, I have a degree in cello. I spent 4 years studying the cello at university, but I don't practice anymore, so I'm really bad. And that's not me just saying like, oh, I'm really bad and I'm actually good. I haven't practiced, and like I picked it up the other day, and I was like, God, this is not good.
A friend of mine told me string instruments, but maybe actually any instrument, if you don't practice every day,
you
lose it very quickly.
The muscle memory, but it's also that way for brass. I think brass players have it worse with their lips. But for us, the muscle memory of these things stays. Like I still remember everything, but my fingers don't have their calluses anymore. They're soft and weak. They're not as like, yeah, I love playing the cello, but now I only play it for fun. I don't want to be paid doing it because it's nice to have a little bit of music where I can be bad. Because, you know, like so much of my work is like you have to be good.
Yeah.
It's quite nice to pick up the cello, play some stuff like really badly, and then just be like, this is lovely. And then go about your day. You don't have to analyze it too much, which is nice.
Yeah. And what do you like about conducting?
What do I like about it?
Because you have to go to a point like, I want to do this in my life, professionally, every day.
I love the fact that when it works really well, you feel a kind of flow state. When you're conducting and, you know, there's the orchestra and there's you, there's this kind of mental state that you can reach where like you are giving to them, they're giving to you, and it kind of just creates this sense of energy being passed between everyone. And you don't really think. A lot of the good performances I think I've done, I don't really remember very well because you're just kind of in it in the moment.
Yeah.
You can look back later and be like, oh, that's terrible. Or that was amazing. And sometimes what felt good, you know, is not necessarily what looks good or sounds good. I'm sure you've been in that situation before. You're like performing, you're like, wow, this is the best thing I've ever done. And you look at it and you're like, oh my God, this is the worst. But I love that element of it. I mean, I love the music itself. I love people. I love that thing of communication. I think when conducting really works, without words, you feel like very understood. Or like a side of you is shown in a very intense way, but you do it without saying anything, but you kind of come off stage and you can look at people and they kind of get it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you had that with dance as well.
Yeah. It's quite nice to have like another way to communicate.
Yeah, I think so. And like whilst on one hand, I'm yapping all the time, I'm always talking, but actually sometimes it's easier to be emotionally vulnerable without words. At least for me, I think it is.
Yeah.
But conducting is also, you know, when you think of a conductor, you think of someone standing in front of an orchestra performing. But conducting as a job consists of like actually a lot more stuff. Like that's probably 5-10% of the time you actually spend as a conductor. Most of it's doing other things, you know?
What kind of things?
So obviously you have to rehearse. So if you were doing a concert, maybe you have 2 or 3 days of rehearsal with the orchestra. If you're doing an opera, you have a month or 2 of rehearsal. And then also, you know, you're score studying. So you get the piece of music on the paper and you sit down either at a piano or without a piano and you analyze it and figure out on a basic level, how does it go? Like what happens? Like, oh, the violins start and they play this. And underneath that, there's these instruments playing. And after that, this.
And you have to know a lot about all the instruments as well, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, we're lucky that we live in the age of the internet where you can Google things about like, oh, what happens if you play, I don't know, a low D flat on a bassoon? Why does that not work? What happens when you do this? Blah, blah, you know. But also part of the training is knowing instruments and understanding what is difficult for them, easy for them, why they might make a mistake. Why does playing low on the viola sound different from playing low on the cello? When you have a clarinet and a flute playing together, why does that sound timbrally different from a flute and an oboe, etc., etc.?
And the difference in loudness also between the instruments, and that's a lot.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, you said like when you think of conductors, you think of old people.
Yeah.
Part of that is true in the sense that to become a really good conductor just takes time. And you don't start conducting from age 5. You start it afterwards. So already by the time you start conducting, you have some knowledge of the instrument you play. You've probably played in orchestras, you've done your music theory, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And then you go from that into learning conducting and you learn more stuff. But you need the experience of standing in front of orchestras, doing all of this stuff. And I mean, really, you're thought of as a young conductor until you're like, I don't know, in your 40s.
That's true. How do you find that?
In some ways, very comforting.
Okay.
Because in some ways, when you're thought of as young, it means you feel you can get away. Like, there's less pressure in some way.
I know, yeah.
But in another way, it's difficult because I think people can not take you seriously, even if you are very good.
Yeah.
But I think by and large, I quite like the thing of being young. And I think I'm quite a youthful person as it is. I can be a complaining, grumpy old guy. But also in general, I think I'm like, hello, how are you? Kind of youthful in that way.
Yeah. And you've also worked with youth orchestras.
Yeah,
How
I do a lot.
you find that?
I really like it. Well, last night I was actually teaching at the school I conduct at. And yeah, I've done loads of stuff with youth orchestra. I love it. I love working with kids. In some ways, it's very different. In some ways, it's super, super fun. In some ways, it's a lot of energy that you need. But I mainly have worked with teenagers.
Okay.
Which a lot of people would be like, oh my God, that sounds like the worst thing in the world. I can't believe I have to convince teenagers to do anything.
Yeah.
But maybe because when I was a teenager is when I fell in love with that music.
Yeah.
I think that you can catch them at this time where you make big impressions.
Yeah.
You make lasting things that stay with them.
Yeah, maybe some people also, their life are a bit difficult at that time.
100%.
And it's kind of a way to escape for them to play. And
one of the reasons why I love music so much at that age is I think when you're a teenager, you're having such intense feelings. And a lot of the time society or adults specifically can be disparaging about, they can be like,
yeah,
you're just being ridiculous. Why are you being so extra, etc. When teenagers are like, you don't get me. And you're going through that whole thing. But actually, it's such an emotionally volatile time, right?
I haven't passed this stage.
No, well, it depends. If we've worked a 10-hour shift together, maybe we do get to that point. But I think when you're going through a period of feeling incredibly lonely and emotionally isolated, like you are when you're a teenager, when you join something like an orchestra, for instance, and you've got many, many people around you, and you all understand and this music speaks to you and you get it without having to say anything, it bypasses a lot of the emotional awkwardness that you feel. Because teenagers today are probably a little bit better than we were when we were younger. But when we're a teenager, no one's going to turn around and be like, I'm having a rough one at the moment. I've been thinking about this existential thing and it's been really worrying me. They're just going to be like, yeah, I'm fine. Whatever. Or they're not going to talk about it because of embarrassment. But actually then when you put them in a situation where they're all playing music together, it kind of allows them to have these emotional experiences without the awkwardness of having to express it and say it in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've played also in very different parts of the world.
Yeah. Well, I think the furthest away I've been is Sao Paulo. And that was super fun. That was amazing.
How is it different?
So I went out for a music festival called Campos de Jordão, which is hosted by the Sao Paulo Symphony. And I was there for about a month. And firstly, I met some of the most amazing people ever, some friends I still speak to now.
Wow.
That was a couple of years ago. And it was interesting because culturally everything was so different, but also I was going there to do classical music with people who do classical music. So there's this common thread between the experiences.
But do they play differently? Because, for example, I know for ballet, they have different schools, in France, in Russia, in the US.
Well, I mean, wherever you go, in Europe even, from the UK, if you just cross into France, the orchestral playing is very different. It's very different depending on the country you're in and what school exactly of classical music, whether it's a more Russian string technique or much more French.
And you've also conducted a bit in Italy.
Yeah, and I'm going back in January, and I love Italy. In this country where the music industry has become very formal, very unionized, in a way that's important to protect people, but also it means the music making in this country can sometimes be a bit business-like.
Yeah, that's also.
Yeah, it's very I'm here to do my job and then leave. And if we go 1 minute over, then I will complain. And I get it in one way. But then you go to somewhere like Italy and there's just this sense of like,
Passion.
well, it's not even just passion. It's just like, oh, let's go and have a drink afterwards.
Yeah.
Like in the UK, if I was working with a professional orchestra, there is no way that the conductor is ever invited to go for a drink with the orchestra afterwards. There's always this separation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Whereas in Italy, it's like after rehearsals, yeah, let's go and have a drink. Let's go get food. It's like much more relaxed. But maybe that's just that group. I mean, it's just one group in Italy I've worked with. There are hundreds and hundreds. So maybe all the other ones hate conductors too, but I couldn't say.
Yeah, you're really good at getting jobs and collaborations and telling people you're here and you're a conductor. So
Well, but this is the thing, I think, today. You realize that with anything in the arts, so much of it's about how well you present yourself. One of the qualities I have, which I do like about myself, is I have very little shame. Like I will email someone who does not know who I am, who I probably shouldn't be emailing, and be like, hey, I like what you do. Do you want to give me a job?
yeah.
Because the worst thing they can do is not respond.
Yeah.
And, you know, even if they don't offer you a job, maybe that puts your name in the back of their head. And then maybe someone else brings up your name 2 months later in a conversation. They have a reference or, you know, something. And I think we can be scared of being like, oh, but they might not like this. They might not. It's an email. They don't care.
True.
They're going to read your email. And if they don't care about it, they're going to look at it and forget that you exist. No one's going to be offended being like, how dare you send me an email?
Yeah, true.
You know? Have you ever received an email where you've been like, how dare this person ask my opinion on something or if I can hire? Like, it's not how it is. But we can, as artists, get incredibly paranoid about self-worth and where our standing is in our community and then overthink. I was talking to my partner about this recently. Being a perfectionist is an important point of being an artist, I think, to a degree. But the problem is a lot of that time, that perfectionism goes over into our admin life. And that's really dangerous. Because we're perfectionists and we're like, no, we need everything to be right. But you can't be that way about an email. You should be that way about the art that you're creating, fine. But if you spend 2 hours trying to draft an email about a specific wording of something, that's not going to help you. But it's very hard to separate those two things.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of the time that character and that perfectionism is how you got to where you got.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a constant battle, I think.
But that's very inspiring. I think I'm going to start sending emails.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my rule is no email should take longer than like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
No email ever. Also, people are constantly worried about how they present themselves. And they want to present themselves in this way, which is kind of proper.
Yeah.
I would say one of the most important things is to present yourself in a way that's honest to who you are.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, when I write an email, it should sound different from your email.
Yeah.
Because we are different people and we behave differently.
Yeah.
And this idea that we need to fit in with this one mold of, dear sir, or madam, or whoever this may concern, my name is blah, 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 blah. I was wondering if you possibly had time for blah, 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 blah. You know, and like, yours sincerely, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, so
Website link, name of artist. And like, it doesn't have to look like that if that's not the type of person you are.
what kind of email would you write?
Well, give me a situation.
Okay, so I'm looking for a conductor.
Right. And do I email you or you're emailing me? Am I responding?
You're
or?
emailing me.
Oh, okay.
You know that I'm
So I
this
found
choreographer.
out
Yeah.
that Elaine needed a conductor for something through a friend. And I'm going to send her a cold email. We've never met before.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, would I use your second name? Probably I'd use your second name.
Perez.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that because I'm just going to make a butchery of it.
P, you can say.
But so to Miss Elaine. Hi, my name's Otis. I'm a conductor currently based in London, UK. I heard that you were looking for a conductor for this project. This is the type of experience I have. I'm really interested in working in cross-arts collaboration alongside dancers, etc., etc. These are some links to things I've done before. If you have time, it would be great to grab a coffee or a pint at some point. Hope you're really well. All the best, Otis.
Wow.
Done.
Yeah. And that's
Just simple.
yeah.
And maybe edit it a little bit. But I think most of the time we know exactly what we need to say. We just overthink.
Yeah.
We just go, oh, is that quite the right word? Is that quite the right thing? As long as they can understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Because anyway, when we read something, we just, I think, register like 10% or something.
Yeah, exactly. And also, it's not up to you to control their reaction. I think we can get really, and maybe this actually relates back to conducting in quite a nice way. The job of an artist, and generally in life, is you have to be able to tell people things and not try and control their reaction. You know, when you've got to deliver bad news, people are like, oh, but I want to do it in a way that they're not going to be angry. It's like, no, if what you're going to tell them is going to make them angry, why are you trying to stop that? Like, they have the right to be angry with that. You can't always just like wrap everything in bubble wrap. It's better to tell them in a way that's considerate, but you don't get to choose how other people react. In a rehearsal room, in a performance. Like, it's why, like, I'm fine when people say, like, I hated that performance you gave. I'm like, that's fair.
Yeah.
It's not my job to convince you that what I'm doing is good. It's my job to sincerely try and do something that I think will reach you. But it's not my job to try and control your opinion of it. Like, if they don't come away with this, then I've failed. It's like, no.
Probably if everybody also likes what you do, you've done quite a bad job, because
it means that you're generic.
Yeah, it's too safe. It's not like...
Well, it depends on what you're doing and what kind of point of view, because, you know, if you're working in marketing, for instance, you might want to be able to generally appeal to everyone. It's an important part of what you're doing. Or if you're talking about something where the message is universal, you want to create something which is going to appeal to a certain side of every human. But also, you can't judge yourself if not everyone likes it, because then you're just changing. It will never work. Just do something else. You know? Just everyone just needs to chill out a bit.
Are you nervous before a concert?
Always. Always. Yeah. I'm definitely not someone who is calm in that situation. I've had to spend like ages trying to find the routine that works to like get me into a good state beforehand.
So what do you do?
Depends on the situation. Usually on a concert day, I like to have done certain things, like stupid little things, like I always have a shower on a concert day morning. I always wear my glasses until I leave the house, and then put my contact lenses in, because I'm paranoid that my contact lenses are going to dry out. I always buy dinner on the way, and I always buy something light, because I never want to eat before performances. I know some people like to have like big meal, feel super grounded. That's not me. One of my big concerts, I bought like sushi or something like that, you know. Do the rehearsal, preferably have some time to lie down. Do lots of breathing things, do lots of grounding exercises, all of that kind of stuff. And then as I'm going on, the important thing for me is not to think.
Yeah.
To like turn off that part of your brain that is thinking.
Yeah.
And actually just be like, I know what I'm doing, and I just need to start it. My brain shouldn't be interpreting anything until I start, and then I'm just in a space where you're open.
Have you ever completely messed up a performance?
Ooh, I've never completely messed up. Well, maybe that's not true. Have I ever completely messed up a performance? I don't think I've ever, like, to the point that it was, like, bad. Have I made mistakes? All the time. Probably every concert I'll make a mistake. But everyone makes mistakes all the time. Have I really badly messed it up? No. Part of the reason for that, I think, is that, you know, you carry on.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do is acknowledge that something went wrong. You know, awkwardness takes two people. If one person is awkward and the other person isn't, nothing's awkward.
That is true.
But awkwardness happens when both people acknowledge that it's awkward. So if the musicians are awkward and the audience are awkward, it's awkward.
Yeah.
But if the musicians are like, oh, it's fine, you know, something happened, but we're continuing, most of the audience won't notice, and those who did won't care.
Yeah.
They won't be like, I ruined my evening because of one mistake. How dare they? I want a refund, you know?
Do you have inspirations and recommendations of conductors, musicians?
Conductors? I don't know. I mean, there are lots of conductors I like for different reasons. Musicians-wise, I don't have one.
Okay.
There's no one that comes to mind as like, you know, a big central figure. But I think conducting a lot of the time is about empathy. I think when it's done well, it's about empathy. It's about empathizing with a composer who wrote the music. It's about empathizing with an audience, about empathizing with the musicians who are playing and understanding. And so what I love about my job is that you get to learn. Like right now I'm studying some music, and that's an inspiration for me because it's like, oh, wow, I'm figuring out why this person wrote this and what they care about in that way. So I maybe don't have one, but it's more like it's important in my job that you always find inspiration, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever written music?
No. Do you know what? When I was like a teenager, I think I had 1 or 2 goes. But then I dated a composer for like 5 years. Honestly. And no, like an unbelievably good composer as well. And I kind of have tried a bit of like arranging, but I've never felt that like that is where I felt like the need to express.
Yeah.
Maybe that will change. I sometimes do think about it and I can have a little idea and I'm like, oh, I could maybe write that. But the impetus is never strong enough. It never feels urgent enough to me. There's always something else that I'd more rather be doing, you know?
Yeah. Do you think someone can be too old for conducting?
To start,
Or even to keep going?
well, I mean, there are some conductors still going into their 90s.
Yeah.
And some of them are very good, some of them are very bad. I think it depends on the person, you know?
Yeah.
I think you probably can get too old to be able to, if you don't have the, you know, the ears or the ability to keep on going, of course you should stop. But, I mean, most conductors have a thing where we're like, we're going to conduct until we die.
Like dancers.
Yeah.
On stage.
But that's the thing with dancers. You guys do stop.
I do know some, especially contemporary improvisation-based work.
Oh, yeah.
95, still on stage, like...
Yeah, no, that's actually very true. I like that element if you will have it always. I was thinking about this the other day. I wonder if I'll ever stop. I wonder if there'll come a point where I'm like, nah, not anymore. I mean, I love teaching. I can imagine going way more into teaching. But,
so you teach conducting?
No, so the school that I conduct at, I do all the orchestras there. But I have taught conducting before. I really enjoy it, actually. Yeah. It's really fun.
You taught me one thing.
Oh, what did I teach you?
I forgot.
Oh my God, I'm not a very good teacher.
I'm a terrible
No, we did 1, 2, left.
And yeah,
so down is 1,
2
is left, 3 is right, 4 is up. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so we've learnt lots today.
Okay, let's go into the random questions.
Okay, random questions.
If you could live a parallel life, so you have your life, but you just have another one.
At the same time?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you mean, like, what would I do?
Yeah, what do you do?
Job.
Well, you can, like, decide not to work and,
okay.
you know, live in the countryside and look at the sky.
I think maybe I would have been, like, a teacher of some kind. I like the idea of being a therapist, but then I think that would be dangerous for me, you know? Yeah, I think it'd probably be a bad idea. Like, I'd probably get too emotionally invested in my patients and then be like, this is not good.
Maybe you'd be an actor.
Yeah, I you know, when I was younger, I thought about it, like being more of like an on-the-stage person. But as I get older, I realized that it's a very specific type of person who can handle doing that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's not me. Maybe I would have liked to have been like a librarian or something.
I could see you, yeah.
I quite like the idea of working in a library, like, you know, looking after the bookshelves and being like, hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are you? Oh, yes, I'm Otis. I work in the library. La, la, la.
What makes you laugh?
Oh, I don't know, stupid things. But people. I love laughing with people. It's like my favorite thing. I like winding people up to make them laugh. Yeah. Actually, I think I spend a lot of time doing that with people. I like poking people in that way and being like, I don't know, that and like really cute animals, probably. It's like very basic, but like my Insta feed is just like animals.
Do you believe in talent?
Yes and no. I think that talent is over-fetishized in our society. I think this idea that you have talent and that's the most important thing in an artist is not right. I think it's work ethic, like intentionality, and stubbornness. I'd place above talent, honestly. Because I know many, many talented people, like many, many, many. And a lot of them, I suppose that brings us into another conversation. Is the purpose of being an artist being happy or making good art? Because a lot of the time there's this tortured artist thing that we like, where it's like they've got the talent, but they are, deeply unhappy, but they're making this amazing art, so they've like succeeded.
Yeah.
And it's like,
And they kill themselves.
yeah, literally. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
so talent, do I believe in it? In some ways, yes. Yeah, I think some people are more naturally predisposed towards certain things. But I think talent is nothing if it's not nurtured and grown and reinforced with work.
Do you like to go to the supermarket?
Yeah.
What do you like about it?
I love to go to the supermarket. Well, it depends on which supermarket. There are some supermarkets where like the vibes are good. And there are some supermarkets where the vibes are bad.
Yeah.
Like Asda, bad vibes. Don't like it. Don't like it at all. Tesco, good vibe. No, Tesco's very practical.
Yeah.
Sainsbury's, bit fancy.
Yeah.
It's got.
I go to Waitrose, so.
Must be nice.
I lost my keys actually yesterday in Waitrose, and someone kept it for me.
Of course they did. That's one. You wouldn't get that in my local Aldi. I do like supermarkets though, although sometimes they get very specific about the order in which you go through the aisles. Like in my local Aldi, you go in and the first bit, it's like that with most supermarkets, it's like fresh vegetables and fruit. But a lot of the time, I don't
want to start with fresh
No,
stuff.
I don't. I want to start with all of the bulky things.
Yeah.
Because then I know what vegetables I need for my things, like for everything else. So if you're here in the supermarkets, please change the aisle order because me and Aline are very upset with it.
And for me, it's also like you get the fresh stuff, but then it's not fresh anymore. It's in your basket where you are.
And also, you put all the heavy things on top of it. And then it's like, what is up with that? But then the problem with that is when you're packing your bags, you want the heavy stuff first so you can
but
at
then
the top, so
you
then
can
you can put it in.
first scan the other things.
Oh yeah, and then you put it at the back.
Processing the scanning,
See, we're solving all of the problems in the world today.
If you could have dinner with anyone, alive or dead, who would it be?
I don't know. I was thinking a lot about my grandparents recently because one of my grandparents lived until a couple of years ago. But 3 of my grandparents were dead by the time I was like maybe 12, 13.
Oh, wow.
And I would have, if I could have a meal, I'd quite like to have it with those 4.
Yeah, actually, that'd be so cool.
Because 2 of them are Japanese and 2 of them are English-Irish. And actually, I'd be like, with my grandpa, who was alive until recently, I got to know him as an adult. He was very old by that point and very different, but very sweet. But yeah, I would have loved to know what they were like, but from the perspective of an adult, not from the perspective of a child.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Anything else you want to share to the listeners? Any advice?
I don't have any advice. I don't know anything. I don't think taking advice from me is the best idea for any of you. So
don't listen to this.
No, don't listen to the podcast. Like it probably hasn't told you anything about conducting or Oh, you want me to pretend to play some music?
Yeah, with the guitar.
La 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 la.
And that was a contemporary piece by
That's
Otis.
my first composition. I hope you all enjoyed it.